Hi, and welcome to session 13 of Elle McNicoll's lockdown writing classes. And I'm going to talk quickly because we have a lot to get through. Today, hi, if you don't know me, if this is your first class, I'm Elle McNicoll. I wrote Kind of Spark and Show Us Who You Are, which is out on World Book Day. And today we are talking about the publishing process, which, I mean, honestly, this is a whole separate list of classes in itself because there's so much to cover. And a few people sent questions, so I'm going to try and answer as much as I can. I'm going to do a very brief general run through of what publishing consists of, and then we'll get going. So publishing, in its simplest, easiest way to explain, is the industry that makes books. So they commission, meaning they seek out and find books to publish, and then they sell them for money. And today we're going to be specifically talking about trade publishing, which is the kind of publishing that publishes books like this. So there's educational publishing who do things, and there's academic publishing, people that, there's people that make textbooks and dictionaries and things like that, and then also people who write about academic publishing, writing articles and text and publishing things about academia and about intellectual subjects. That's all great. That's a different part of publishing. We're talking about trade, which is selling books for commercial use and for pleasure. So trade publishing, you've got editorial, you've got production, you've got rights, you've got sales, you've got PR, you've got marketing, you've got events, and you've got design. There's going to be people shouting at me for leaving them out, but I am trying to get as much into this as possible. Editorial is probably the most desired part of publishing, partly I think because it's the most well understood, so people understand what editorial is. I didn't when I was young, I didn't know what it was, but editorial is the department that is in charge of a lot of the storytelling aspects. So they are the ones that pick the writers, they go through the big pile of submissions, of manuscripts, and they decide which ones they want to take to acquisitions. So they also work on making the story better. Editors work with authors to make the work better, and they also proofread and copy edit and get the manuscript ready for going to the printers. So editorial is one of the most desirable parts of publishing. People who love stories, people who are writers themselves, people who really love to work with writers, that's the department where people want to go. Everyone wants to discover that manuscript and be the editor that has discovered the next big thing. However, there are other fantastic departments in publishing, like book production. The production department is one of the most exciting places. My friend Robin is a production assistant, or she's been promoted, but she started as a production assistant at HarperCollins, which is one of the big 5 publishers. That's another thing we'll talk about in a minute. But they are in charge of producing the book, of making the books, of getting them printed, getting everything. Basically, the physical book is down to production, and that's a department a lot of people don't know about. So if you would love to work in publishing, but you're like, I don't know if reading a manuscript 75 times and putting in corrections is what I would like to do, book production is incredibly exciting, and there are lots of really great jobs for creative people who love books in book production. Really exciting, and it's not just talking to printers about deadlines. There's lots of good fun stuff as well. Then there is marketing and PR, which are 2 separate things, but we're just going to cram it all into one. And events. Some publishers have their own events team on top of marketing and PR. But PR is short for public relations, and they are in charge of getting the book to newspapers. So is marketing and PR will get the books to as many reviewers as they can, because lots of good reviews can build up a buzz and get people excited about a book. They will work with events, if there is an events team, to, under normal circumstances, get the author to do book signings and go to bookshops and meet people, and sometimes even come to schools to talk to you guys. That's down to marketing, PR and events. And their job is basically to get the book into as many people's hands as possible and to get a buzz going so that everybody knows about the book. And if you're somebody who loves talking about books with people, and if you're an extrovert, or you love to plan parties, or that's marketing, PR and events is probably a great place for you. Sales. clues in the name. They are in charge of selling the books, of relationships with bookshops, relationships with wholesalers, and making sure that they can get the publisher's books and the author's books into as many places as possible. A very, very important and difficult job sometimes. And then rights. Rights are dealing with a number of things that they're probably shouting at me right now, but one of the main things is foreign rights editions. So getting books, it's my email going off. Maybe it's a foreign rights deal, fingers crossed. Which, you know, is cool because of the rights team that we work with. A Kind of Spark is coming out it's already out in the Netherlands, and it's coming out in France, Italy, Spain, South Korea, and the USA. It's coming out in North America in October, and that's because of the incredible work that the rights team do. They make sure that the book can get as far and as wide as possible, and that everybody gets paid ethically, and that their work is protected. So a very, very difficult job. Who have we left out that's going to be angry? I think that's a very, very rough outline of publishing houses, of the general jobs that exist. But I will say every single publishing house is different, because some publishing houses have hundreds of employees, hundreds of people working in them, and others have about 4 or 5. Nights Of, who published my book, only have about 5 people working on staff, I think 4 even, and then they work with freelancers for things like sales and marketing and PR. So that's a tiny little team. The big 5 publishers are Simon Schuster, HarperCollins, Penguin Random House, Hachette, and Macmillan. You will most likely have read a lot of books published by these houses. They're the big 5 corporate houses, so they're the big bosses. You know, they're like Disney or Warner Brothers that make, you know, big Hollywood films. They're big publishing houses, and they have lots of little imprints in them. So if they're at the top of the family tree and there's lots of other little imprints under them, that's all the little mini publishing houses that belong to the big 5. And a really fun thing to do is to work out who published your books. Their emblem will be on your book. So that's Nights Of. Who else have we got? I don't want to grab. We've got Maz Evans, so Chicken House. You can see it says Chicken House there. So you can always see someone's emblem, and if it isn't clear from the emblem where they're published, inside, we always have the page. That's where you can write to publishers, or where you can work out where they are. So every book will have a little clue to who's published them. However, there are not just the big 5, it's not just those 5 publishing houses, there are lots of independent publishing houses, meaning they don't, belong to a corporation, and they might not have any imprints at all. Harry Potter was published by Bloomsbury, at the time was a very small publisher that did a lot of academic publishing, and Harry Potter really blew up and is now one of their biggest, exports. Chicken House is another great independent. Canongate in Edinburgh is a Scottish independent publisher, and they're quite big too. They publish Life of Pi, that's a big one, and a biography of Barack Obama. And they sent me a proof, which I have right now, which I'm going to read. And then I would say for books like mine is about as small as you can get. There are some people that publish completely on their own, just one person, which is extremely admirable. But I think Nights Of is about as small as you can get, and that's why it's incredible, because they're filled with such passionate people that they can make books like A Kind of Spark a real success. We're nominated for the Blue Peter Book Award, we're nominated for the Brantford Bowes Award, we're nominated for the Books Are My Bag Award, and also, was Waterston's Children's Book of the Month and Blackwell's overall Book of the Year, and that's because of the hard work of a really small press. So there weren't a lot of people, but everybody, did their job, 50 times harder than they had to, and that's what made the book such a success. So publishing is full of passionate people who love books, and they all do different things. But in the supply chain of the publishing world, it is not just publishers. There are also booksellers and literary agents and bloggers, and they're all extremely important. Literary agents are, so if the author and the publisher are the bread, the literary agent is the meat in the sandwich. They're in between the two of them. A literary agent represents writers, and a literary agent is the one who most authors go to and say, I would like representation, and then the agent will take the book to the publisher. The agent will negotiate contracts with the publisher. The agent will make sure that the author is getting paid properly and that they are getting the best deal. The agent is essential for if you want to be a writer. And if you love reading people's stories, and you think you could be a really great literary agent, it's a fantastic job. And you get to negotiate between the author. You're the middle person between the publisher and the author, but you're always on the author's side. A good agent is always on the author's side. It's important to have a literary agent as an author to take care of you and represent you the way actors have agents. And then booksellers. I was a bookseller before I worked in publishing. Before I was an author, I was a bookseller, and they are essential to the ecosystem of the book world because there's so many books published every year, and a good bookseller, a good bookseller who is, passionate about great stories will curate all of those books and find the ones that they want to, hold up and sell. And we live in the age of Amazon now, and Amazon is a convenient company, but they're not a good company. They're not ethical, and they don't care about books. They care about making money. But booksellers care about books. They care about writers. They care about small presses. I mean, good ones do. And they're there to help promote great stories. And if you ever, when bookshops open again, and I am desperate for them to open again, a really good bookseller will have the most incredible recommendations for you. I love talking to booksellers, and when I was a bookseller, I loved selling my favorite books to people and getting to chat about books. So that's another incredible job. And finally, bloggers. People who often for no money at all will write reviews for books and get them a little bit of buzz. A Kind of Spark, when it came out, in the weeks before it came out, the bookshops were all shut, and it was purely bloggers, teachers who had blogs, and diverse book bloggers. They were the ones that really championed the book and helped get a word of mouth buzz going. They are so important to the book industry. I can't even tell you. So if you want to start a blog, it's never too soon. You can just talk about all the books that you love. So I think that's everyone. I will have forgotten someone, but that's the ecosystem that is publishing. Now, excuse me, I'm so sorry, it's not coronavirus, I'm just talking too quickly. I got a lot of questions about the author submitting to agents on Twitter, and then a few of you asked about how you get published. So there are many, many different ways to get published. The most traditional way is to send your book to agents. This is known as querying. So you'll send your book. If it's non-fiction, you might send the first few chapters. If it's fiction, you're supposed to send your manuscript, as it currently is. And you also send a query letter, which is a sort of covering letter telling the agent about you, about your process, about why you've written this book, la la la. And then you send that to as many agents as you like, really, or whichever agents you're keen to represent you. And the agents get, they get tons of submissions, and they try and read them all, and they pick out the ones that they want to perhaps represent. They say, oh, let me read a little bit more of this, or let's have a meeting, let's talk. And then, if everything goes well, and rejection is par for the course. It takes some people 100 times before they get even, a meeting with an agent. It's very, very difficult because lots of people want to be authors. But, let's say an agent and an author get along and they love each other's work ethic and the manuscript is great, so they say, great, we'll work together. Then the agent might work with the author on the manuscript. They might say, this is a good story, but it needs a bit more editing, it needs a few commercial things here or there. Then they work together like an editor and an author. That's why a literary agent is a hard job, because they do so many things. So they'll work together to get that manuscript into tip-top shape, and then that manuscript will go what is called on submission. It will be sent to the publishers. It will be sent to as many publishing houses as the agent thinks is appropriate. And the agent will most likely have a relationship with a few of the editors at these houses and will say, hi, it's me again. I have this new client, this great manuscript, blah, 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 blah. Would you read it? And hopefully, again, if, there's still plenty of room for rejection at this point. And some agents eventually do say, I don't think this manuscript's the one, we'll have to work on another book. And so let's say an editor says, I love it, I'm going to publish it. So that's when the author signs with a publisher and they go, you know, they start hopefully a journey of, you know, getting their book out into the world and published. That's not my story. I went to my publishers, Nights Of. They're in London, and this was before COVID, and I went and I knocked on their door and I said, can we have a meeting about me maybe proofreading books for you? I wanted to work in publishing, and they said, we don't actually have any jobs going, but have you written a book? And I said, I have. I'm a neurodivergent writer, and I've written a book about a neurodivergent kid. And they loved it, and they read it and asked me to publish it with them after 2 weeks, which is not normal. And then they helped me meet a couple of agents, and my agent Lauren, I just loved on a first meeting. And it's really important that you take time before you pick your agent, because they're so important. And I just knew that she was the right fit. And then, you know, the rest is history. That's not the norm. Most people get an agent first and then a book deal. I got a book deal and then an agent, and I didn't let anyone see a kind of spark except Nights Of, so I didn't get rejected. But I am 100% sure if I had sent this out the traditional way, I would have got a lot of rejection. Rejection is totally normal and a long and famous part of publishing. So I'm trying to think if I got everybody's questions. I got a lot of questions about, like, you know, how can I submit to agents when I'm nervous? You have to just believe in your story, and to an extent believe in yourself, and you have to make sure that, you know, for me, I was so passionate about accurate neurodivergent representation in stories, the kind that I did not have as a kid. That was more important to me than anything. So I was like, I can take rejection, I can take humiliation, I can take whatever, I just need to know that I tried. So if you're nervous or you have anxiety, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in our next session, which is called What Kind of Writer Do You Want to Be? That's totally normal. It's part of being a creative. You have to think of a greater cause and just push through it. So I hope that's a good rundown of the publishing industry. It's a super quick one, I'll say that. But I just wanted to do a video on that because when I was a kid, I loved books so much, but I had no idea how they were made. Never met anyone in publishing, never saw anyone from publishing come into school. Teachers didn't ever talk about publishing as a job. It's a huge industry which is in desperate need of creative people who think in wonderful ways. If you are neurodivergent and you're watching me right now, you are exactly what publishing needs. That's a career that you could do really well in, you know, and if you love books, it's a great career for you. So I thought we'd do a quick video on that. We don't have a featured author this week because of the nature of the topic, but the bookshop that I really wanted to shout out is Kenilworth Books, who I love. I believe they're in Coventry. I don't know because I've not get to go. I haven't been able to visit anyone in the last year because of everything, but they are incredible and they have the most wonderful window displays, and their bookseller Tamsin is the bomb diggity. So Kenilworth Books is the bookshop of the week. That's the publishing industry. We all need each other, booksellers, agents, publishers, and if you're from a small press, like we are, you gotta run 10 times harder and, you know, work so much faster to get where other people go. But when you do, it's worth it. And, you know, we get to talk about our books with you guys. So thank you so much, and I'll see you on Friday where we will be doing What Kind of Writer Do You Want to Be? And I'm gonna get real personal and I'm gonna talk about some really important things, and I can't wait to see you there. Bye!